At first glance, this painting seems to be falling apart. There is no clear face, no stable landscape, no room, no story that can be read in 1 second. It looks like color has exploded across the canvas, but this chaos has a secret. Kandinsky did not paint it like a random storm. He built it like music. And that word matters. The title is not landscape, not battle, not apocalypse. It is Composition 7. A composition is rhythm, tension, silence, dissonance, return. So the real question is not only what are we looking at? The deeper question is, what are we supposed to hear? If you look into the center, the painting stops feeling decorative. Black strokes cut through pale yellow, red flashes collide with green, and a deep blue curve bends like a heavy musical phrase. It feels less like a picture of the world and more like the world at the instant it loses its old shape. That is why Composition 7 is so unsettling. It is beautiful but not calm. It is abstract but not empty. It seems to hide the remains of older images: a boat, a wave, a mountain, a blast, a garden, a judgment. Nothing stays visible long enough to become a normal object. Everything appears and dissolves again. On the left side, the painting almost gives us a clue and then takes it away. These repeated marks could look like a ladder, a fence, a musical staff, or a row of sharp vibrations. They do not illustrate sound, but they behave like sound: repeated, broken, rising, interrupted. They make the eye move the way a fast rhythm makes the body move. This was one of Kandinsky's great ambitions. He wanted painting to escape the duty of describing objects and reach the direct force of music. Music does not need to show a tree in order to move us. It can be pure structure, pure pressure, pure emotion. Kandinsky wanted color and line to do the same. By 1913, Kandinsky was living in Munich. Born in Moscow, trained first in law and economics, he had turned toward art only later. In Germany, he became a central figure of the Blue Rider Circle, which wanted modern art to become more spiritual, more inward, and less obedient to the visible world. Europe, meanwhile, was tense. The First World War had not yet begun, and Kandinsky was not predicting it like a newspaper. But old systems felt unstable. Politics, religion, science, cities, even reality itself. Composition 7 belongs to that edge-of-the-world feeling. Now look at this wide, pale diagonal cutting through the right side. It could feel like light, like a path, like a clearing after a storm, but it does not settle the picture. It divides the painting like a blade of silence inside a loud orchestra. Around it, green, blue, red, violet, and black continue to surge. This is where the hidden music becomes visible. Kandinsky is arranging bursts and pauses. The dark accents work like low notes. The red marks strike like brass. The blues pull the eye inward. The pale yellow and white areas open like sudden spaces in the sound. Near the top, a red and blue oval suddenly appears, almost too clear for this painting. It looks like an eye, or a target, or a note held above the rest of the orchestra. But Kandinsky refuses to let it become the one key. The moment we focus on it, the surrounding forms pull us away. This is a painting with many competing centers, like several melodies happening at once. That idea is crucial. Kandinsky left no simple written explanation for Composition 7. Instead, he left dozens of preparatory works: drawings, watercolors, diagrams, and painted studies. They do not form a neat step-by-step map. They are more like rehearsals for a complicated piece of music. This is one of the strangest facts about the painting. It looks spontaneous, as if it were painted in one feverish outburst. But Kandinsky prepared it obsessively. More than 30 related studies are known, and after that long preparation, the final monumental canvas was completed in only a few days. So the chaos is not accidental. It is controlled chaos. But if this is music, what is the theme? Here, the investigation becomes more complicated. Art historians often connect Composition 7 with biblical and apocalyptic subjects Kandinsky had explored earlier: the flood, the Last Judgment, resurrection, and the Garden of Eden. But in the final painting, these subjects are no longer illustrated in a traditional way. They have been shattered into motion. If a Renaissance painter wanted to show the Last Judgment, you would expect angels, bodies, clouds, a clear division between the earthly and the divine. Kandinsky gives us none of that clearly. Instead, he gives us the emotional temperature of catastrophe and renewal: collapse, pressure, rising, falling, darkness, release. In the lower center, the dark blue curve can be read almost like a wave. Around it, fragments scatter in different directions, as if something has been broken open. This is why the idea of the flood makes sense as an interpretation, not because Kandinsky paints Noah's Ark like an illustration, but because he paints the feeling of a world being overwhelmed. Yet, the same area can also feel like a birth, or an opening, or a release of energy. That is the double nature of the painting. Destruction and creation are almost impossible to separate. The old form has to dissolve before the new one can appear. The hidden music is not peaceful background music. It is a composition of rupture. To understand why Kandinsky thought this was possible, we need his theory. In Concerning the Spiritual in Art, he argued that color and form could affect the soul directly. He often described painting through musical language, inner sound, harmony, vibration, composition. Whether or not we treat his experience as literal synesthesia, his artistic goal is clear. He wanted the viewer to feel the painting before translating it into words. That is why Composition 7 can be frustrating. We keep trying to ask, what is that shape? But Kandinsky seems to answer. The more important question is what that shape does to you. Does it strike? Does it float? Does it pull? Does it make the whole canvas tremble? The black lines are not outlines in the usual sense. They do not simply contain shapes. They attack the surface. They cut, snap, vibrate, and then vanish into color. Around them, the paint becomes softer: pale greens, cloudy yellows, washed blues, pinks that seem to glow from underneath. The line is the strike. The color is the resonance. And notice how Kandinsky refuses comfortable balance. A dark form is answered by a pale opening. A red accent appears, then a blue counterweight. The painting never rests. It keeps recovering from imbalance. In the lower right, something almost becomes a figure. A dark mass leans forward. A green oval glows nearby. Red and violet marks wrap around it like tension lines, but the figure never fully arrives. This is the strange power of the painting. It lets the mind recognize something, then immediately pulls that recognition apart. One possible reading is an apocalypse without characters, not the end of the world as a literal scene, but the end of the old language of painting itself. This is the important turn in the story. The painting is not meaningless because it is abstract. It is abstract because Kandinsky believed ordinary images were no longer enough. A literal angel, a literal flood, a literal paradise would reduce the experience. He wanted to take those themes and push them past illustration into rhythm, color, and force. That is why the painting can feel chaotic and deeply organized at the same time. It has no single image to decode, but it has structure. It has repetitions. It has crescendos. It has visual echoes. The same kinds of marks return like motifs in a symphony. And here, we come back to the title of this video. This painting looks chaotic, but it has a hidden music. The music is not hidden because there are secret notes painted somewhere in the corner. It is hidden because it only appears when you stop hunting for objects and start following relationships. Red against blue, line against field, pressure against release, noise against silence. Maybe that is why Composition 7 still feels alive today. It asks us to enter uncertainty. Painted in 1913, just before Europe entered a historic rupture, It is not only a painting of fear, it is also a painting of possible renewal. A world collapses, but color keeps moving. Forms break apart, but rhythm survives. Destruction is not the final note. So, what do you see here? Chaos, music, apocalypse, or rebirth? Is Kandinsky showing the end of the world, or the beginning of a new way of seeing it? Look again at the sharp lines, the blue curve, the red flashes, the pale openings. Which part of this painting sounds the loudest to you? And if this canvas really is a kind of music, what do you think it is playing?